Okay, everyone. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started then. Welcome to this webinar, the latest in our series, and today we're going to have a discussion about the 5 reasons that IT should provide end users with self-service capabilities. I'm Guy Nadivi, Director of Business Development for IAHU, and today I'm joined by my colleague Tom Melnick, our Professional Services Manager, and today we're not only going to talk about the reasons for providing end users with self-service capabilities, but we're also going to demonstrate self-service in action, and you can see what it would look like. So what is driving the demand for self-service? Well, it's something you might have heard about called the consumerization of IT, and there are 4 primary factors underlying that trend. Number 1 is mobility. Computing power is simultaneously increasing and shrinking, and that's made access to computing resources very easy for just about anyone with nothing more than a smartphone. And of course, if people can have easy access to smartphones, then they can bring their own device, which has become another major trend. So with all that computing power readily available, a lot of people often just use their own personal computing devices for work. And computing resources are also being propagated to the cloud, which further enables the ability to compute on the go. And finally, there's the social aspect. Nearly everyone is sharing their experiences publicly with others, and that increases awareness among end users of what's possible in the realm of self-service. And when you put these 4 factors together, you have a new kind of user, what Gartner calls the business consumer. And we are in the era of the business consumer, according to Gartner, and that is what is leading the push for more self-service from IT. Okay, here are some notable stats from Gartner about IT self-service. First off, IT self-service can address close to 50% of the contacts made to the IT service desk, but right now only about 34% of IT organizations currently use self-service. So just imagine if you could relieve your service desk of half their workload right now, how much more productivity you could get out of them. And Gartner also says that an additional 40% of IT organizations plan to implement self-service over the next 18 months. So self-service is very much on people's radars. And by the way, these statistics come from the Gartner document listed under the graphic for those of you with a subscription who want to read up in more detail about it yourself. So why provide end users with self-service? So again, we turn to Gartner as a reference point because we work very closely with some of the research analysts, and one of them some sort of parameters. I'm sorry, if you could mute yourself, that would be very helpful, whoever that was. This Gartner analyst that we work very closely with specializes in IT operations, and what he told us directly in a recent conference call was that too many self-service capable processes are being handled by level 1 technicians, and that is the #1 challenge in the infrastructure and operations market right now. So in other words, a lot of tasks that are being done manually by skilled staff members can be automated and turned into self-service applications, and that would free up a lot of IT personnel to do other more important things, which is a big deal because IT operations service desks are simply overwhelmed these days, and short of massively increasing headcount, there's really no other practical alternative to making processes more self-service capable to address the heavy workload. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into the top 5 reasons why you should provide your end users with self-service. And not surprisingly, the #1 reason to offer that self-service capability to your end users is because it improves business users' productivity. Your end users are already accustomed to self-service in many areas of their lives, like at the airport, ATMs, gas stations, etc. So self-service is not something that's new to them. And not surprisingly, a lot of them actually prefer self-service. Now that they're accustomed to it, they enjoy being able to do things on their own when they can. And one of the biggest reasons that they like the self-service paradigm and the improvement in productivity that it brings is because it eliminates their dependency on IT personnel. And when you eliminate that dependency, you eliminate the delays that leave business users irritated, and that's going to improve IT's customer service ratings. Reason number 2 why you should offer your end user self-service capabilities is also not surprising. It reduces IT service costs. So self-service is very effective for processes that are already standardized and routine, and when there's no good reason to involve human interaction. So, for example, password resets are a classic example of a self-service capable and ready process. Same thing with account unlocks, and of course things like resource provisioning for new virtual machines. And automating these processes and giving them a self-service interface can yield substantial reductions in IT service costs. Reason number 3 why you should offer self-service capabilities is a consequence of the second reason. It's because doing so will reduce your service desk's request queues. So is there any organization whose L1, L2, and L3 personnel aren't overwhelmed right now? I haven't heard of one. And providing self-service capabilities to your users will significantly ease the burden on your service desk staff, which I'm sure they would gladly welcome. And a big reason why you should ease the burden on your staff by offering self-service capabilities to your users is because hiring more service desk staff is not scalable or cheap, and therefore not a practical option. Okay, reason number 4 is an interesting justification for offering self-service to your end users. Is because it improves your IT asset utilization. And by adding automation and self-service, you can leverage your existing IT assets to process far more requests than they're currently handling. And the greater volume of requests being handled translates into a higher ratio of transactions or requests being handled per hour. And when factored into asset utilization calculations, that will yield a lower resource cost per transaction. In other words, better IT asset utilization than you're currently experiencing. Okay, and the 5th and final reason I'm highlighting today just might be the favorite of IT professionals. Offering self-service capabilities allows IT to improve its meaningful contribution to the organization. Manually resetting passwords and unlocking accounts is necessary, but is there really any IT professional out there who considers that kind of routine, repetitive task to be meaningful? I don't think so. Your IT staff is a valuable resource, and providing self-service capabilities to your end users will free up that valuable staff to work on more important, more complicated, more strategic tasks. And this means that you'll get better utilization out of your staff, which is another kind of IT asset. And frankly, they'll probably start enjoying their job a whole lot more too. Okay, I have spoken enough, and hopefully you guys are all eager to see an actual demonstration of self-service. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to go ahead and make my colleague the presenter. Actually, I'm going to leave that to my colleague Noy. If you could please make Tom the presenter, I'd appreciate it. And Tom will go ahead and take it away from here.
Thank you, Guy, very much. So a good example for such a self-service is onboarding a new employee into the company or organization. So let me just dive in right into it. This is the IEU self-service webpage. I'm going to log in. And you will see that on the left-hand side, there are a couple of categories for our self-services. There is system administration, there is user management, and VMware administration. So, for example, we'll do the password reset self-service, which allows to reset the password to any user in the domain. For example, if we launch this password reset workflow or self-service, we will be asked to input some fields, and then, of course, the respected user will have a new password. So I will put on my details. And submit the request to iShare. iShare then will process the request.
Tom, I think we're having a technical difficulty. Can you bring back your screen, please? Oh, there we go.
Yes. Okay. So, Guy, I hope you could see it now. I'm going to do another demo, which is onboarding a new employee, like I've told you before, which allows you to create a new employee in the domain by entering the employee's credentials. So, if I launch the self-service and enter the details of this new employee, for example, his email, his first name, last name, and the OU path where he belongs to, and click on Submit. This user should be now created in Active Directory, and I will receive a response from iShare that the user Tomic was created successfully with the following password, and user must change his password at next login. So how does it work? What is the concept behind it? I'm going to take you back into iShare, and you will see a new engine on the left-hand side, which is called iShare Self-Services. And under iShare Self-Services, you have various categories, like you've seen in the web page itself, again on the left-hand side. So if we go and dive into user management, here you could see the two self-services that were published into the web page. To show you the workflow that we've initiated using the self-service is create user in Active Directory. Basically, what the workflow does is uses the AD create account activity to create the user in Active Directory, generate a password for it, and then if the user was created successfully, we use a new activity which is called self-service response, which tells us that the user was created successfully or if there was an error while creating the user. So how are those input fields are created in the self-service? When we dive into the add create account, you could see that we have input fields, path, first name, last name, and we populate them with new variables that are not existing in the runtime of the workflow at present time. That means there are no activities or no variables with those names in the workflow. So if we go back to the self-service under user management, onboarding new employee, you would see that we invoke the workflow which is named create user in Active Directory. And when we hit generate blocks, our page is going to auto-refresh and load those input fields. So you could see those input fields from the workflow have refreshed, and you could see them here. Basically, any input field you can expose into iShare and into iShare self-service, and it will be published in the web page itself. When we invoke the self-service, when we press submit, a request will be sent into iShare, and you could see the request here in active logs. You could see, of course, the source that initiated the self-service, which is Tom, me, and if you double-click it, you would see all the parameters that the workflow used as activities, for example, password generator, AD create account, and self-service response, and of course, the response itself. So basically, you could audit the response and the activity of the self-service in iShare itself. So, Guy, I've finished the demo, so you could take it away.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And okay, and hopefully you can see my screen. So at this point, we'd like to open up the floor for questions, any kind of technical questions you may have. So please feel free to ask away. And I'll just ask Noy to make sure that people are not muted.
To go and say, like onboarding to create the tech support slip ticket to go out and deliver all that, automatically push it into EBS to the sync, do the AD creation, email creation. Well, I don't know if you can do the email creation because we don't have access to that.
Okay, we had a lot of difficulty hearing you. Could you please repeat the question?
For manual work. Yes. Yes. Yeah, there shouldn't be any. They should just sit there and, hey, I got a new email I got to do.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question again, please?
Oh, they're going to build another one that nobody uses.
That's like, okay, I guess that's the question. We're just listening into a conversation, so.
SharePoint one.
Noy, if you could please take care of that one.
That's good, too.
Are there any other questions anybody might have?
Hi, I have a question. This is Bhavin Chop from Johnson & Johnson. Just a quick question. Can you talk about how this platform integrates with the ServiceNow platform?
Sure. We are integrated at the API level with ServiceNow, so all you need to do is have credentials and a server address to log in. And we provide bidirectional communication. So we can go into ServiceNow and open up a ticket and fill it out and do whatever. And also, people can submit tickets into ServiceNow, and we can monitor that queue. And when a request comes in for, let's say, provisioning a VM or onboarding a user, we can take that and act upon it. So it's another kind of form of self-service capability.
Okay. And as far as differentiation between their native orchestration and this, I hear you, like what's the differentiator between the two? Between the ServiceNow native orchestration, what differentiates I hear you from?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of things, but probably the most significant one is, ServiceNow is very much the icon of the cloud-based company. In fact, that's how they promote themselves. So everything they do is in the cloud, including orchestration. We have found that when it comes to orchestration and automation, it turns out that that's the one thing that companies are not very eager to put out in the cloud. If there's going to be something taking place on an automated basis, reaching into a bunch of different machines, doing a bunch of different stuff, they want that all to be controlled on-premise behind their firewall. So we provide a secure on-premise automation / self-service capability, and theirs is really more cloud-based. Beyond that, we provide something like 500 pre-built activities compared to they have less than 100. We have 120 pre-built templates. I think they have just a few. We have integration with all the major ITSM platforms, MC and HP, and they, as far as I know, they don't provide any integration outside of their own tool. And of course, that's another critical factor is that in order to use ServiceNow orchestration, you have to have ServiceNow. In order to use our automation self-service capabilities, we don't care what you have. We're platform agnostic. We'll work with whatever you've got.
Okay.
Good question. Any other questions? Okay. So,
Guy, if you'd like, I could do a quick overview for people who are not familiar with our tool, in order for them to understand how it really works, with a short description.
Yeah, sure. Take it away. Go ahead.
So what you're seeing now is the iShare Studio, which basically our administration tool for iShare. We have 4 engines.
Tom, we need to swap screens. Hold on. Noy, could you please make Tom the presenter?
So you guys could see it now? Okay, great. So what you're seeing here is, first of all, our action rules engine, which allows you basically to receive events, alerts, or messages via various sources. For example, monitoring systems like SolarWinds, like HPOM, like Microsoft SCOM, and of course, from ticketing systems, for example, ServiceNow, Jira, Remedy, or HPSM, by email, by SMS, by SNMP, syslog, and web services. And that allows you to create conditions which later on trigger workflows. For example, if we have a condition that we receive from a source, which is an email with a body which contains the value demo, then we will trigger a workflow named demo. Of course, if we have, for example, integration with ServiceNow, we will be able to, first of all, listen to any ticket from any form that comes from ServiceNow, for example, incident. And then we, are, of course, are able to read all the variables or all the fields from ServiceNow. Second of all, we have our scheduled actions mechanism, which allows you to trigger workflows in once a day, once an hour, once a week, once a month, or multiple times during all those periods. So basically, you could invoke iShare to perform maintenance tasks. You could perform morning checkups with your infrastructure to check the databases, application servers, your vCenter, and so on. And our most valuable asset, which is our workflow designer, which I showed you briefly before. On the left-hand side, you could see our activities. We have more than 500 activities out of the box. When each activity basically does a logical operation in that respective infrastructure, for example, integration with Active Directory and Microsoft Exchange, various monitoring and ticketing systems, FTP databases, and so on. And you could perform anything, and you can build any workflow that you wish using those drag and drop actions as I'm showing you at the moment. Inside each activity, you could define what you would like to do and on which infrastructure or on which server you would like to perform this operation. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, sorry, you could see our templates. Our templates basically give you an idea of how to create a workflow with those respective categories as well. For example, Active Directory categories like finding zombie computers or zombie users, creating snapshots while running on a list of VMware servers and hosts, and so on. So we provide more than 120 workflows, and by only dragging those workflows into the designer, you would be able to receive this mock-up of a workflow and, of course, build your own workflow around it. And as I said before, we have our newest engine, which is the self-service, and here you could create new self-services for operators who are using the self-service web page to invoke. This is done also very easily by only generating the blocks. iShare reads the input field from the workflow itself and then, of course, exposes them to the web page of the self-service. Other than that, we have a lot of integrations that act like listeners. Our integrations are bi-directional, so we are able to communicate with, for example, ServiceNow both ways. We, first of all, could listen to ServiceNow, to listen to incoming tickets, and then act upon them, as Guy mentioned before, or we could, during a run of a workflow, create new tickets or update existing ones. So Guy, I'm finished with the overview, so you could take it away from here.
Okay, and we did have a question come in via chat, which is, how do you incorporate this within a self-service portal/website? Tom, do you want to take that?
With if I may to clarify the question, is it an existing self-service that this user has?
Well, we don't know. The question came in from the
chat.
Let's go ahead.
First of all, so I'll answer it for both options. First of all, we provide the self-service portal, our web portal, with the product itself, so you are able to use the iShare self-service, the IEO self-service. But if you have your own portal, for example, in SharePoint, you could design a web part that just initiates a web service request to iShare, and then iShare will invoke the corresponding workflow from your SharePoint portal or any other portal where you can invoke and initiate a web service. We provide 3 web services out of the box for iShare that you could use for performing those operations.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And Noah, if you could please give me back screen control, I'd appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Okay, one last thing for today. If you are interested in exploring iShare and self-service automation for your own environment, then as a next step, I strongly encourage you to visit our website and download your own free 30-day trial copy of iShare. And it's right there on the download menu from our front page. It's a full-featured version of iShare. It has all the self-service functionality we demonstrated for you today. And if you need any technical assistance with iShare while you're testing it out, we provide that free of charge during your evaluation period. So the software and the support are free during the trial period, and it's a zero-risk offer. And that pretty much concludes our webinar. So thank you all for attending. If you think of anything else that you would like to ask, my email address is very easy to remember, as is our website, both of which are on your screen now. And that'll conclude our webinar. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time.